Well, time now for the morning trade at Amazon as Prime Day begins. For more, we welcome in Jeff Pierce, Senior Manager, Derivatives Trading at Charles Schwab. What are your expectations, Jeff, for this event?
Well, yes, Prime Day's here, and we've got 4 days instead of 2 this year. So we have research firms and analysts coming in expecting some pretty big numbers. If we look at research firm eMarketer expecting to bring in a record $12.9 billion in the U.S. this year, up 53% from last year. An analyst at B of A said that Prime Day could generate more than $21 billion in gross merchandise value, up 60% from last year. They also said this would be about 10% of their gross merchandise value for Q3. Adobe on Monday said they expect consumers to spend a record $23.8 billion in online retailers during this 4-day event. Now, and remember, we've got Target and Walmart having discount events at the same time. This is going to be a good test for Amazon, though, especially if you look at some of their new tools, their AI shopping assistant, which helps them, ask questions and uses AI to refine those searches. They can use Alexa Plus to notify on pricing updates. And even though, this tool is expected to maybe not be used by everyone, it is likely going to give a boost to their marketing segment, which we've seen grow very quickly, exceeding $50 billion last year. And finally, these events are normally peak time for Prime member signups, which sits at about $139 this year, and of course offers that faster shipping, streaming, and the other services.
Yeah, good day for sales, not so much for margins, but as you say, really the metrics that are important are those Prime sign-ups and also, obviously around the advertising too during that 4-day event, which obviously has been extended, which perhaps tells you a bit about inventories. You mentioned some of the competition, though. I mean, how do these other companies sort of stack up? And, is that a test for Amazon, on that level?
It is. I mean, Amazon has been the clear winner when it's come to these events, but that we do have companies like Walmart and Target specifically that have started their discount days. Target's Circle Week runs from July 6th to the 12th. Walmart's deals are from July 8th to the 13th. But we've even seen names like Best Buy, Kohl's, and Dollar General put on promotions ahead of Prime Day in an effort to try to lure consumers with some of those earlier sales. I think consumers are going to be hyper-focused on deals to try to fight tariffs. Of course, we've got some tariffs that, potentially go off pause here soon. I think investors are going to be interested in seeing whether or not these deals are worthwhile for the consumer or if they're still afraid to spend because of this environment. For Amazon, Prime Days have slowed over the last few years, typically only single-digit sales increases, but in part because they host more events throughout the year. It'll be interesting to see whether this one makes a bigger splash now that we're seeing it at 4 days instead of 2.
Okay, and so what does this all mean for the stock? I mean, trading down, shares lower by about 1% this morning, but, where do we go from here?
Yeah, historically, Amazon shares have gotten a little bit of lift following Prime Day, gaining a little over 1% the week after the event, a little over 3% for the month after. I think we're going to have this event. We're going to then see our Q2 report. That's where we'll see whether or not this is worthwhile for the company and really made a big splash. We're also going to see whether the consumer is likely to continue to spend throughout the rest of the year. This event goes across 20 countries. They've got those new enhancements. They've got their new big deals, which they're launching this year. I think that's what investors are going to be focused on, whether or not this growth that we're seeing out of the third-party seller service, the web service, the advertising, whether all of that is going to continue and the consumer is willing to spend in the face of these tariffs.
All right. We'll have to watch and wait and see. Thank you so much, Jeff Pierce, for that. Let's trade it now with Tim Bigham, options strategist at Buy Alerts. How are you approaching your example trade on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking really for continued consolidation in this stock. It's been kind of the big underperformer of one of the big cap, mega cap stocks in the NASDAQ 100, certainly trailing the triple Qs on a performance basis by about 6% this year. And as Jeff and you alluded to, you normally get a slight bump post, Prime Day, about 1% or so. So might get that lift there. July actually has been by far the best performing month for Amazon and the market generally since the financial crisis ended some 17 years ago, showing almost a 7% gain for the month here. So I'm cautiously, I guess, somewhat bullish on Amazon, although I think the market's gotten ahead of itself. So it's kind of a yin and yang. I think we'll continue to bleed out sideways. So taking advantage of what is somewhat elevated IV has popped recently in Amazon, and just selling a short-term iron condor, the July 18th traditional 235, 237.5 call spread, and 215, 212.5 put spread, basically with a nice cushion on either side from the current price of the stock for the shares to move up or down here, collecting about 75 cents or so, risking somewhere around $1.75. So like that risk return here of about 42% if the stock seems somewhat range bound, and we have earnings at the end of the month. So I think that'll kind of mute the stock reaction as well to any big moves in front of earnings.
Okay, so cautiously bullish, as you say, a lot of wait and see mode when it comes to this, particularly when it comes to the report card, but also with regards to a little bit more visibility perhaps on tariffs too, as Jeff Pierce was describing just before you came on. I mean, there's a lot of metrics for investors to sort of, look through. I mean, what are you looking at specifically? What's most important?
Yeah, I think, if the companies kind of give more of an all clear that business hasn't been hurt that bad, certainly Amazon being one of them going forward, I think that will provide a little bit of relief. But, looking back, valuations on stocks generally at extreme simply because AI has kind of outweighed the tariff fears, at least so far here. At some point, I'm still a believer valuations matter. And I think the market's gotten a little ahead of itself on that aspect, but Amazon kind of mid-tier as far as valuation. So I look for Amazon and maybe Apple as far as those mega cap stocks to be somewhat outperformers maybe to the Microsofts and Nvidias of the world over the next month or two.
Okay, then, and talking of getting a bit ahead of your skis, what are your sort of thoughts on the overall market performance today? It's a bit quiet. Particularly when you look at the S&P 500, flat as a tack right now. So is the NASDAQ. I mean, what's your assessment of what's going on right now?
I think it's really, no one is really aggressively taking, stocks higher here. This has been one of the quietest breakouts for sure we have seen for stocks that have kind of just dribbled up to fresh new all-time highs, but with not any conviction. We see the 10-year yield creeping higher as well. So we're having that kind of overhang of rich valuations, certainly higher interest rates. Rates aren't coming down here. So I don't think anyone's rushing to get in, but at the same time, we always have, it looks like at least until we don't, those dip buyers. So I think we'll continue to see this kind of sideways action, one day up, one day down, until we get some more clarity, both on the tariff front and on the interest rate front as well.
Yeah, not such a meaningful pop of color on that heat map, that's for sure. But interesting that the small caps seem to be outperforming today, which could indicate a little bit of rotation going on right now. Tim, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your thoughts. Tim Bigham, options strategist, Buy Alert.